And it looks like Chris Wilder Act 2 at Sheffield United is all over, and he is going to be sacked as the Blades manager. All of the major outlets are running with this morning that this is not a probability now, and it is definitely happening. This board meeting we heard about, I think it was on Thursday, and there was kind of a timescale, has happened, and Sheffield United will be sacking Chris Wilder. Get your thoughts in the comments. This one will split opinion, I feel. It's going to be right down the middle. I don't think we're going to get many neutral takes on this. I think people are either going to think this is a smart idea or this is a really bad idea. I'll give you my take. I said a minute ago, Chris Wilder Act 2 at Sheffield United. He will tell you, and regularly does, I say in press conferences as Blades manager, he'll have to tell you in a different arena very, very soon that this is probably Act 4 at Sheffield United for Chris Wilder, because he's always bigged up the fact he was a fan, he was a player, he was a manager twice, obviously, and bit of an iconic manager at Sheffield United, and that's why this is going to be seen as a big, big decision by the recently installed American owners there at Sheffield United. Let's just set the context. So, Prince Abdullah took Sheffield United up into the Championship with Paul Heckingbottom. Then there was a bit of a sense, to use the Norwich quote, the Stuart Webber quote of sent to war without a gun or whatever it was. He said sent to a knife fight with, I don't know what the silly violent metaphor that was used is. But let's just say Sheffield United went up, and it was going to be a struggle because Sander Berger and Iliman and Jai, who were probably their two best players and certainly their most saleable assets, hence those were the ones that went for big fees, went out straight away, and it was a pretty abject relegation. And the idea from Prince Abdullah was that he was going to bring Chris Wilder back in. I thought there'd been a bit of a fallout the first time between those two, but in he comes back in, abject relegation. Down they come to the Championship. Obviously, Prince Abdullah had been looking to sell for the longest time, didn't really appear to have necessarily the resources or the fight or a combination of both or a compounding of both to really make a go of it at Sheffield United. And I get the impression that it took a very, very long time, and it does with these takeovers sometimes, for things to happen, and that if he could have got out of Dodge at the start of the season, he would have. But I think it was sort of December time, Christmas time, wasn't it, that the takeover was completely rubber stamped. And of course, when that happened, Sheffield United under Chris Wilder were in the midst of a really fearsome promotion battle with, well, at that point, Sunderland, Leeds and Burnley. More from Sunderland later, because they really have put the final nail here in Chris Wilder's coffin, as we know what happens at the end of the season in May. But I suppose if you buy a football club halfway through a season and they're challenging up at the top of the table, then you do one of two things, or you do two things really. You keep the manager in and you back them. And here might be a bit of an issue for Chris Wilder, I guess, in this story as well, is that obviously you'd have to really have a big pair of cojones to sack a manager who's in a title race in the middle of a season, even if you do believe they're not the right man ultimately, which I guess the Blades owners believe. But there was money spent, wasn't there? There was backing for Sheffield United. And I suppose the owners probably have gone into this boardroom in this meeting and said, hang on a minute, we gave Chris Wilder a hell of a load of money for Tom Cannon, you know, that striker to get you over the line in this title battle. And I like Tom Cannon, but he didn't score any goals, did he? I think he scored one at Burnley, I'm trying to think. Maybe they were a bit unlucky, weren't they, in terms of Harry Clark, like Harry Suter, kind of came in and he got hurt and didn't really play very much, did he? And there were other signings as well. Did Chowdhury come in midway through? I'm trying to remember my timeline. But what we do know is that Chris Wilder was backed in January. Chris Wilder would argue that his squad wasn't up to snuff in January and they needed backing because of all the rigmarole in the summer. And that's where we'll get the split in opinion. Was Chris Wilder backed, or did he just then get a squad commensurate with what Scott Parker had at Burnley and what Daniel Farke had at Leeds? He certainly had a squad that was better than what Regis Lebris had at Sunderland. And this is the final nail in the coffin, as I say. Objectively, by whatever logical metrics you want to use, Sheffield United were favourites to win the playoff final, weren't they? In terms of spend on players, salary, squad size, experience, all of that stuff, as well as the fact that they were forget about, I'm sure we'll get some VAR comments. I mean, you've got to park that now, Sheffield United fans. I'm sure we'll get some about it. But regardless of a VAR decision, fast forward 20, 30 minutes on, they're still leading the playoff final with not very long to go, and they did not win it. I am going to argue that Chris Wilder is pretty unlucky here to lose his job. I've got to say, I think he's unlucky. And I said on Friday, when this news was kind of breaking for the first time, that I do respect the right of any rich investment group, owner, conglomerate of people, whatever they're described as. I do respect their right, if they buy something, to run it in whatever way they see fit. I think that's kind of comes under sort of freedom of choice in terms of that. So if they think it's the right thing to take Chris Wilder out, then I respect that. And I'm very interested to see who they replace him with, because that becomes another side of the coin here. I think I can respect that and still say that I think Wilder has been unlucky. In parachute land now, people are scoring absurd numbers of points, and Leeds and Burnley both scored 100 points in the Championship last season. And given that, I know it doesn't work like this, there's going to be a lot of ifs, buts and maybes in what I'm about to say, but in the event that Leeds and Burnley both scored 100 points on pitch with a 2-point deduction, Sheffield United, if you take goal difference out of the equation, to get a clear title win would have had to score 103 points to get past both of them. We know the record is 106 in the Championship. Hello, Birmingham fans. 111 in League One this season, but 106 Reading in the Championship. So you pretty much have to be... Which Sunderland get like 104 under Peter Reid? Did Newcastle get over 100 with... Who was it? Houghton or Rafa? I can't remember. But anyway, Wilder would have had to have put up one of the greatest Championship seasons of all time to do it. And as well, look at the playoffs. I mean, they nailed the semi-final. Yeah, there was the red card, wasn't there? But they won 6-0, which was a record. And there's almost, in terms of rough luck for Wilder in the micro there in the final. Gus Harmer was the best player on the pitch. He went off injured and has now twice stepped out of a playoff final with his team looking in good nick, and watched them lose from the bench. And literally, it just swung in Sunderland's favour, didn't it? They had to attack. That was the only way they were going to come out, was to be behind. It almost worked in their favour to be behind. And then Ahmed Hodzic is not on the pitch, is he? There's a concussion and the whole midfield's open, and they conceded in the 95th minute. And that was... kind of felt like the only way at whatever it was, minute 70, that they were going to lose that game. But they lost that game. I get it. I can think all these things can be true at once. I can respect an owner's opinion to run their club how they see fit. I can think that that Chris Wilder has probably been a bit unlucky here, but I can understand that Sunderland got up there. Leeds got up there. Burnley got up there. And Sheffield United did not get up there. So what next for the Blades then? I mean, get your views in on where do you think he should have gone or he shouldn't. Well, it's kind of immaterial now. He's going, he's gone. Who are they going to put in next? And I don't know if this was just a pithy Sky News headline or whatever, but I did hear, and they're going to go down the data-led route or whatever. And I'm kind of like, what does that mean? You know, it's been data in football for 30 years now. I don't entirely know what that means. Almost kind of like implies some kind of modernisation that Sheffield United didn't have, but I don't know. I think Chris Wilder was pretty tactically savvy last season. And yes, people make the argument they won a lot of games narrowly. And you can run that argument both ways, can't you? You can say, okay, they won lots of tight games. He's a good manager because he tweaked and put the chess pieces in. Or you can run the argument the other way that they had the advantage in terms of monetary value of players and all of that stuff. Should it have been as tight as it was from time to time? Could they have given themselves more margin for error and breathing space in that run-in where it did go under with those 3 defeats in a week? And I don't know. It's all ifs, buts and maybes, and it's all ancient history now for Chris Wilder, who is going to come in and take the job. We've been doing a lot of this, haven't we, recently? Because we've still got the QPR job open. Which other jobs are open at the moment? We've had Norwich done. Bristol City is going to be Gerhard Struber very soon. There's one obvious one I'm completely missing. Middlesbrough, which is probably a candidate here. Michael Carrick. He'll be put forward for the job. He's a big name. Stevie Cooper will be put forward for the job, won't he, with a previous championship promotion. I don't know who else is going to be in the mix because these owners have never hired a manager. So we've got no evidence of what they kind of think and what they kind of like and what we think that they might well do. If we're talking about data, could it be a head coach who's going to be given players? We will see. We've seen everything work in the championship, haven't we? We've seen unknown people go all the way through. We've seen experienced managers do the job. We've seen, even Rob Edwards change in mid-season and then win the playoffs with Luton. There you go, Rob Edwards. There's another name, although we think he's fairly close on Middlesbrough. There's going to be lots of videos about managers this week. Anyway, I will wrap up as Chris Wilder's time at Sheffield United is wrapping up. He is going to be out the door according to all of the big outlets. Let me know your thoughts in the comments and let's try and shift the conversation to who should replace Chris Wilder. Normal plea, I don't know why, with this particular guy. If you're unable to express your view without insulting anybody or particularly insulting anybody's appearance, I would think you might be able to grow up a little bit and we can just focus on talking about the football. I've had enough people comment on my appearance on YouTube over the years to know that it's pretty irritating and can be quite upsetting and it's quite unnecessary here. We're just here to talk about some blokes kicking a circular sphere of air around a field for an hour and a half, aren't we? So let's try and stay calm. Get me your views in the comments. And yeah, who's next for Sheffield United?